Hey everyone, and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I am here at Subaru to take a look at a vehicle I probably should have purchased. I've been reading your comments, I've been reading your DMs, you've been telling me, Mike, you should have never sold your Subaru WRX. Mike, you should have purchased a Subaru Outback instead, and maybe you're right. Here at Ira Subaru of Danvers, they've been laughing at me. The guys that work here were the ones that helped me buy my Subaru WRX 2 years ago, and they've been telling me, Mike, you're a traitor. You should have never left the brand. Well, we're gonna try fixing that today by putting you guys in the right direction with a crossover that I think is the best value in its class. And that vehicle is the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium with optional package 13. Now this optional package will push the price tag close to $40,000, but you are going to receive a heated steering wheel among other creature comforts and amenities that we will dive into later in this video. Personally, I think the Subaru Outback Premium is as far as you need to go in the lineup. That is right. You don't need to go with the limited or touring to have a great vehicle and get the best bang for your buck. So if you're ready, then I'm ready. Let's dive right into this video and check out the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium we're taking a look at today, you have a starting cost of right around $35,000, which is a steep price increase from last generation. However, this is now your base model. There is no longer a base trim with cloth seats, with the smaller infotainment system. Those days are over. But to help you cushion that blow, for one, the Subaru Outback does have super symmetrical all-wheel drive coming standard, whereas other rivals are going to force you to pay extra to go from front-wheel drive to all-wheel drive. But then, more importantly, for this generation, and more specifically this trim, it takes elements from the Onyx Edition last generation and has mixed that with the Premium, making this a more upscale driving experience, making this a more upscale crossover overall. Now, the big talking point, though, for the Subaru Outback is its design, because as you make your way over to the side profile, it's more crossover-like than station wagon-like, which a lot of people are not happy about. But with this vehicle, though, you do have more of an upscale look and demeanor, and also a more rugged appearance as well, which is why I don't think you need to go with the wilderness if you do take on some snow-covered roadways or the off-road. So up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights, LED daytime running lights, and LED fog lights. So better visibility at night or in adverse weather conditions. This is Subaru steering responsive headlights as well from last generation. As you make your way into the center portion of the front fascia, here you have some cladding here, a more aggressive style, and it's not as civilianized as it was in the past. Also, as we would expect from Subaru, aggressive cladding for the front bumper, which is going to be perfect if you are taking on some trails or going on some adventures. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, here we have some aggressive cladding once again. So Subaru is kind of carrying over some things from the last generation and other vehicles in the lineup, but it's a bit more squared off for the wheel arches. Also some vents here helping out with the airflow and overall aerodynamics of this vehicle. Now, with the Premium, you are going to receive 18-inch alloy wheels. I gotta be honest, this is not my favorite design here from Subaru. I do think higher trims do offer a better wheel package, but that's just my take. You are going to receive gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Also, aggressive roof rails as well, ready to go for those off-road adventures or maybe some camping trips as well. Then as you make your way around to the back here, it's all about this light bar that runs the length of the rear fascia. This was necessary and much needed for Subaru. This is going to give you more of a premium appearance to this model. Also, very typical now in the 2020s, the Outback badge is written out on the liftgate. Then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, here we have the cladding once again with the Subaru badge being stamped into that bumper. We have seen this a lot in the lineup. And then lastly, you are going to have a visible exhaust outlet. So I actually think overall, this is a good looking vehicle. That's just my take here. I also like the fact that since it is a bit more upsized, it's going to be a bit more practical and also more suitable for a growing family. We also can't forget here that with the Outback, you are going to receive a class-leading ground clearance of 8.7 inches. So matching that with Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive, you have a very capable and competent vehicle at around $35,000 to start. Under the hood for the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium is a familiar sight. A 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine producing 180 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a CVT. Now, if these numbers are not adequate for you, they don't meet your requirements or your standards, you still have that 2.4-liter turbo. And I will say this, having experienced that model last year, you get better performance and also, I think, a smoother and more refined driving experience as well, even though the CVT pairs up very well with this 2.5. If you're just looking for a bit more oomph off the line, then go in the Limited XT or Touring XT direction. Now, also, like I said before, we have Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive, so we're checking off the boxes here. But what about fuel efficiency? Well, with this premium, with this naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, you're looking at right on 25 miles per gallon in the city and 31 miles per gallon on the highway. Obviously, we are waiting for a hybrid model here to fit in the lineup with the Forester hybrid and Crosstrek hybrid, but in the meantime, this is still pretty fuel efficient for what it is and falls right in line with other vehicles in this class. Then when you hop inside, that's where things get very, very interesting. You have a whole new dashboard layout here with a full digital gauge cluster, new infotainment system, so new software, but best of all, physical buttons and dials. It is a beautiful, beautiful sight. So what you have here, well within arm's reach, is the buttons for your dual zone climate control, your AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction, and your heated seats. Now above that though is this new infotainment system, which if you have checked out the new Toyota RAV4, it's very similar. It's not exactly the same, but very similar in terms of the layout. On the left side of the screen will be quick access icons for your home screen, your onboard navigation. We're going to talk about how we have that here on our Premium in a minute. Your music, then of course your Bluetooth and smartphone connectivity. And then lastly will be your settings icon, which leads you to a sub-menu where you're going to have widgets for your sound, your profiles, your eyesight, and driving assistance features. Then of course your vehicle, time, and date. Very easy and also more importantly, very responsive here with this touchscreen. So I think a huge improvement over last generation. Also, next to the infotainment system will be a physical dial for the volume knob. So we're doing a pretty good job here with this vehicle so far. Also, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory, and Subaru did improve the screen a bit where it's clearer and easier to see. Also, I think it's a bit larger as well. Also, you will have reverse automatic braking here with the Premium. Very nice. In front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster, and I have said on numerous occasions that what Subaru has done here with this digital gauge cluster is really impressive, because especially when you have that map layout, it looks like it comes from older Audis, which is not a bad thing at all. The resolution itself is very much in line with other crossovers in this class, and I think is a bit better than what you're going to find out of Toyota right now, out of Honda, out of Chevrolet. I really like this layout here that Subaru has gone with. More importantly though, on the steering wheel will be physical buttons once again, and it's laid out the exact same way. The only difference though is that you will have the ability to scroll through different layouts on that digital gauge cluster, but then also on the right side of the steering wheel will be X mode. So you no longer have to use the infotainment system to access that feature. So I like the accessibility here for this generation. On the left side of the steering wheel and on the dashboard, you're going to notice this cloth-like material that makes its way across the entire dashboard. Very interesting, but we have seen this a lot from Toyota and Mazda, and with Toyota having a part ownership of both brands, I'm not surprised that we're seeing this now in the Outback. You're going to notice some more buttons here for your automatic liftgate, and then you will have the ability to lower and raise the lighting for your instrument cluster. So really cool stuff here. But I think the main talking point though are these seats. Because for 2026, with this being a Premium, last generation you had cloth upholstery. This time you had the water repellent upholstery that we saw in the Onyx edition. So we're blurring the lines there. We're meshing both trims to give us this at 35 grand. Now I will say this, that the water repellent upholstery does feel very nice. I mean, it's comfortable, it's plush, and these seats are very supportive. Also, the bolstering is pretty good here for a vehicle that isn't sports tuned. So I think a lot of you are going to find yourself very comfortable in this vehicle. Now, the driver's side does have power adjustability, whereas the passenger will have to manually find their ideal seating position. I'm not surprised by that at all, with this being a premium trim. Now, the rest of the interior is pretty straightforward. You are going to have a wireless phone charging pad beneath the head unit, beneath your buttons for your dual zone climate control, so that's well within arm's reach. Then you have for the center console itself your traditional gear shifter here, 2 cup holders, and then also more buttons for your auto start stop, your auto vehicle hold and traction control on and off button, and electronic parking brake. Best of all though, you don't have a lot of gloss black trim. Yes, it's there, but it's flanked by this plastic material which should be easy to clean throughout the years of ownership. When it comes to your center storage compartment, decently sized. You're not going to be able to fit a 17-ounce water bottle, but enough for some smartphones, wallets, or other tech gadgets. Then to round out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. And this leads me into the optional package 13 that is available for this trim and what it will be offering you guys for 2026. So for a very hefty $2,270 through optional package 13, you're going to have a 12.1-inch multimedia system with onboard navigation, the power moonroof, the heated steering wheel, the wireless phone charging pad, and the rain sensing windshield wipers. This is where I think Subaru kind of got things a bit wrong. Yes, they gave us a better upholstery for these seats, but I would love to see that heated steering wheel become standard, especially since most of Subaru's buyers live in the northern half of the US. And especially during this winter, with it being so cold, the heated steering wheel is most certainly necessary. It is a must-have. So unfortunately, you're forced to spend an additional $2,270, and that gets you close to 40 grand. At $35,000 though, if you subtract what this optional package gives you, you're still receiving a well-equipped model. But with this package, it does provide a bit more value. So it's a give or take there. I do think, though, that what the premium is offering at 40 grand is better than a limited just above $40,000, but that's for you guys to decide. Then for passengers in the second row, they are met with a very respectable 39.5 inches of legroom, which isn't really that far off a Volkswagen Tiguan, Toyota RAV4, Hyundai Tucson, Honda CR-V. So if you're looking for a 2-row crossover that is going to be spacious and practical enough for your growing family, the Outback is going to be that choice. Also, because we have that higher roof line, it's not as claustrophobic as last generation. I understand a lot of people love the station wagon-like dimensions and the station wagon-like design. But for a lot of Americans, this is what they prefer. This is what they want, and Subaru is moving in that direction to meet those demands. Now, I will say here, though, with the premium, with the water-repellent upholstery, it's still comfortable. These seats are actually very nice, and again, I can sit back here, relax, and enjoy the overall driving experience. So what you have here out of the premium isn't a cheap vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. You are going to have a crossover that does feel pretty much upscale here at 40 grand or at $35,000, depending on what you choose when it comes to that optional package. But I still think here, even though some people disagree, this generation is actually a nice improvement over the outgoing model. Also back here, you will have 2 center-mounted air vents to go along with a USB-C and USB-A outlet. What I also want to point out here too is that yes, you do have an aggressive center hump, but because of the width of this vehicle, you can easily have a third person in the center. And then lastly, you are going to receive a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Then returning to the rear fascia to take a look at the cargo area for the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium, you are going to receive a power liftgate, and inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 34.5 cubic feet of room. Now, for those of you who have been watching this channel quite a bit over the last few months, this is better than the Volkswagen Tiguan, so if you're looking for a bit more space, you have that here with the Outback. Also, this falls right in line with other compact crossovers in this market as well. So it's very spacious, more than adequate, and I think that if you're someone who does go on frequent road trips, you can easily store probably 9, 10, 11 bags of luggage. Also, of course, the higher roof line, since this is no longer a station wagon, will accommodate more luggage as well. Better yet, though, beneath the floor mat, you are going to find a spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. On both sides of the cargo area will be some cubbies for some smaller items, maybe a couple of water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Better yet though, and this is very convenient if you are in a hurry, you can conveniently fold the second row seats by using the latches on both sides of the cargo area, and this will expand this area to about 80.5 cubic feet. So again, pretty good here in this market. So practicality along with the off-road capability, the versatility, this vehicle does seem to have it all here at around 35 grand. It would be somewhat wrong of me to be dismissive of the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium, because this is one of those crossovers that you take a look on paper and you say, all right, what is different here? We still have the 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine, which has been retuned. I got to put that out there. It has been retuned. 180 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque, still paired with the CVT. But you would have to be an enthusiast or know your Outbacks very well to identify the differences. You're going to notice a bit more of a mid-range and low-range torque. And again, these are all things that I would just gloss over. I would not even be focusing on at all. You also still have that CVT, which I think pairs up better with the 2.4. That's just my opinion here. That's why I would go in the XT direction. You also have a vehicle that's still built on Subaru's global platform. So when you take a look at all of that, you're like, well, what is different here? You know, even though we have a new design, it no longer looks like a station wagon. We have new technology. Mechanically, what is different here? Well, Subaru did retune the suspension a bit, giving a bit more rigidity, a bit more refinement, also helping out with the interior insulation. That is a big one. Subaru's always prioritized that. They've always prioritized the smaller details that some manufacturers would kind of gloss over. And we saw that last generation with the interior. And this year they doubled down on that again. Even though you don't have soft touch materials on the dashboard or the door panels, you have more of this microfiber or cloth material. I'm okay with it. I am okay with it at the premium level. Also, another thing too is that Subaru, like we saw with the Crosstrek and the Forester, integrated a WRX steering column. So you're going to have a bit more feedback, a bit more stiffness to the handling, and that gives you a bit more engagement on those weekday commutes. But again, this is not a sports crossover, so even with the 2.4, this is not going to be for someone looking for a fun daily driver. With the 18-inch alloy wheels that come standard on this model, ride quality is actually pretty impressive here. The suspension absorbs the bumps, so you're not going to be abused on those weekday commutes, and it doesn't translate to the interior either. So the outside world isn't going to bother you. The bumps and the potholes aren't going to bother you. At 35 grand, this is going to be a comfortable vehicle if you're looking at buying a compact crossover or midsize crossover in this class. Now, the reason why I have said that the premium is the best value, that you don't need to look at a limited or a touring, is because of what you receive here. The full digital gauge cluster, the new 12-inch touchscreen. You also get with the optional package 13, a heated steering wheel, power moonroof, a wireless phone charging pad. At 40 grand, this is more than enough. Now, for those of you who are power hungry, unfortunately, you got to go with the XT. And with the XT, you're spending close to $45,000. Do you want to do that? You know, like if you're someone who can kind of live with 180 horsepower, I think the premium is the way to go. That at 42 grand for a limited, to me, it's not worth it. That's just my take there. And while it will come down to features, it will come down to amenities, right? With maybe ventilated seats, leather trim seats, because with the Toyota RAV4, you don't get leather trim seats, but with the Outback, you do, which I still find a bit interesting why Toyota would allow that, because Toyota does partially own Subaru, but Subaru, in my opinion, has a better offer. They have a better package to work with across the board. Also, of course, you have super symmetrical all-wheel drive and the 8.7 inches of ground clearance. So with that being all standard, it's difficult for me to justify spending more, which is why, if I had to do it all over again, if I had to sell the Volkswagen Tiguan or I had the WRX, at 35 grand, even though I think the looks are jarring, even though it is controversial for this generation, this would have been the smarter choice. This would have been the higher IQ choice. And that's why I'm telling you, if you're someone in this market, go with simplicity. Go with a vehicle that isn't going to be complex, because you're not going to be dealing with software issues here with the Outback. But also, if you're someone who's looking at buying a Subaru, more importantly, and you're cross-shopping with a Forester or an Outback, the price increase for this generation is justified. Because the Forester has the older infotainment system, you don't get a full digital gauge cluster coming standard. Also with the Forester, now with the new Outback, it almost seems somewhat outdated. And I think at $35,000, this is a better choice. This is worth the price of admission. I really like the Outback's composure. With the WX steering column, it handles the corners really well. And yes, with the 2.5, it might not be quick, it might not be breaking speed records, but you can enter highways very safely and pass slower drivers. Everything about this crossover is smooth, even with the CVT. And that is the one adjective that I would describe the Outback in general. It's smooth. There would be no complaints on a longer road trip. There would be no complaints if this was my daily driver. At highway speeds, road noise really isn't that bad. I mean, considering that we have a higher roofline now, we have this boxier shape, 18-inch alloy wheels, this is quieter than most rivals in this class. And best of all, it really truly does feel refined. And I think that when you factor all this into the equation, right, it comes back to this particular trim, where you're taking a look at what you're paying, and then you try comparing that to rivals. It's hard to justify looking at maybe a CR-V, maybe a Toyota RAV4. And I would have to see what the new CX-5 is like. But at $35,000, this is a bargain. This really truly is. You know, as much as we've complained about the price increase, you got to remember that last year you had a base model. So this is now your base. And if this is the baseline, Subaru raised the bar in their lineup. And that's why, with this bar being raised, I don't think spending extra for a limited or a touring is necessary. If you're someone who needs to have creature comforts and amenities, you need to have the coolest thing out there, I would actually not steer you in the Outback direction. Not between 40 and 50 grand. Under $40,000, it's difficult to find a vehicle that I would say is better overall compared to this crossover. And with that being said, as I wrap up this video, I personally think this is the best value, this is the best bang for your buck, and you shouldn't look elsewhere in the Subaru lineup or even outside the Subaru lineup. So guys, let me know what you think here about the 2026 Subaru Outback Premium. Is this the choice in the lineup? Is this the better value compared to a limited or a touring? Let me know in the comment section below. But guys, once again, thanks so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys next time.